All right, so I was mistaken on my last video. It's a 19 millimeter on this, not a 20, so just be aware of that. For this lower ball joint nut here. So you'll see I've got it backed out pretty much finger tight here. I can kind of move it a little bit, but from here, I'm actually going to use my screwdriver. And if you can't, you want to be careful probably prying against the CV axle here. But if you can't really get in there, what you can do though is jam your screwdriver, being that it's already finger tight. You can jam it up in there. I don't know if you can see this. And then from there, this will act as somewhat of a press, and it should pop it loose there for you. If not, what we can do, use our hammer and assist it out of it. See, it's nice and wedged in there. Dang. There we go. All right, so I had this in there. I just backed the nut out till it popped. And now, since it's already finger tight on this one, we're just gonna back this guy out. And again, I hit all this stuff with penetrating oil. That's what you see here. It's not brake fluid. Hit this with penetrating oil. I hit these three here. These are 13 millimeters. This is a 19 lock nut on the top of that ball joint there. And then I've already got my sway bar end link disconnected. I just kind of moved it out of the way. But you can disconnect it from here at the lower control arm, or you can disconnect it here at the sway bar, either one. This one's just nice because it's threaded and there's just one bolt. You don't even have to hold the other end with the nut on this one. So that's a 16 there, 16 millimeter. You can do this just with basic hand tools. I'm gonna use this just since I have it, which is nice. But you kind of got to get it started. This brushless Milwaukee. We use these a lot at work, and they take an enormous amount of abuse and hold up. So definitely worth the investment at the house. You could probably get, I don't know, 300 inch-pounds or so out of these. Not sure what they're rated for, but a little loud there. And then you have your nut plate here, right? Bracket. It's got the nut plates on it. You want to hit these before with penetrating oil so you don't tear any of the threads out. These are pretty nasty. We're going to put anti-seize back on these before we install them, just because they take a lot of heat and grime. So what we're going to do now is pull this down, slide this out. I'm going to slide my new one in, and you could tell these, yeah, I mean, they were right at the alignment shop. They wouldn't do the alignment without replacing these, and I don't blame them. You know, but this is something I can do, so I'm going to take care of it instead of paying them $500 aside for a maybe a $30 part. I'd have to look at the tag. Not very expensive, but see the boot's torn. There's no grease left in there, and these, of course, just wear out. And if these ever break, then you got a real problem, because it takes the whole assembly here with your wheel, crams it up into your fender, and then you're in for thousands of dollars worth of repairs when you should have just done the preventive maintenance. I should never have let it got to this point. But thankfully I caught it before I did, and we'll get it fixed. All right, so I'm gonna put the new one in here. It's again, you want to make sure everything matches up. All right, again, we're gonna put the new one in here. You want to make sure everything matches up with the old one there. Looks like everything's about the same. This is going to be a little, obviously not moving around like that, so you might have a little to work it in a little bit, but we're going to bring this guy down here, kind of bring this one out of the way, wiggle it in. There we go. Take our nut plate bracket here. It's got the nuts welded on there. And kind of wiggle it around so it pokes through. So I put anti-seize on these. I try to do that with all these things, because it just ends up being a total mess trying to get these things off. So we're gonna wiggle this around so I can get that one started. There we go. All right, so these are 13 millimeter. Go ahead and tighten these up. Kind of get them started before. That was a little, there we go, a little snug. Give it an extra little turn there. A little quarter turn after it tightens down. So, all right, so sometimes you have to kind of get it started in there. So the thing is with this, on the new one, it's actually got a 5 millimeter hex here. If you get it up there and it's starting to spin on you when you're tightening the nut. However, this is not going to fit in here, not with the CV axle on there. So what you would need to do, if you had to do this, is you would take your cutoff wheel, cut it really shallow there. You might do a little bit at a time before you get all the way too far, and then it just doesn't work. But that way you can get in the top of this to keep it from spinning as you tighten this lock nut down on there. Kind of wiggle it in, you'll see. You can get it started there. Get your lock nut. Probably do a little, I'll just put a little bit, I don't know if I can get to the, put a little bit in the nut here. Just not a bad idea. It's got the lock nut, so I'm not worried about it coming loose or anything like that. And then I'm trying to put this on without getting in the camera too much. If you've ever worked with anti-seize, you know that you're going to be covered in it in about 10 seconds after opening the bottle. So it gets on everything. It gets on your clothes, so don't wear anything nice that you don't want ruined, because it will ruin your clothes. And I don't know if it does anything to your washing machine, but it's probably, your wife ain't gonna be happy with you putting that kind of stuff in there. So I usually wear gloves, but I forgot to put them back on, and here we are. So I'll check back in after I get this tight. If it starts moving, I'll cut that wrench down and use it up in there on the top of that. But that's the lower ball joint. This is the right side. The left side is identical. So yeah. All right, so I couldn't started tightening this on here, and it was wanting to slip on me. So a little trick you can do, instead of using that Allen, because I can't even get to that point even yet, is I use my jack here. I cram this up in there so it's in the taper there of the knuckle there on the yoke. And then you don't want to press on the bearing cap there with the grease, or grease cap, whatever you want to call it. Damage that, and it could come out and leak on you. But now I can get my wrench on there, and I can keep an eye on these threads, make sure they're not turning. Looks like they're staying put in there. And I'm just going to run this guy down till it gets tight. Put a little, get it to snug, and then another, quarter turn or so in there. This is the 19 millimeter here. And yep. All right, got it tight there. I'm gonna bring this down and get this out of the way. Go ahead and, oops. Well, I'll figure out this camera thing. It's my first video I'm making, so bear with me. But I'll go ahead and reattach my sway bar end link there. 16 millimeter. Probably put a little anti-seize on that as well. I like to use that on everything just because it could come back to bite you in the end. I don't know if you noticed the garage floor here. This is my folks' house. I didn't have any room today in the garage at my house, so I came down here to do this. But these garage floors does these. I think this floor is about 2 years old. You can just tell how thick the flakes are here. It's fully flaked. But if you're looking for a garage floor, don't do it yourself. I mean, you could, and 5 years or so, you'll be calling Brian and his guys to come grind it up and put down a professional lifetime garage floor. I'll put a link in the description. These garage floors, these coatings, they'll get you hooked up. I have had it at my last house. I'll be getting my new house that we just bought. I'll be getting it done there as well, of course. And yeah, man, just a great, if you're going to be laying on the ground doing this, this is the floor you want to be on.